Hello, my curious souls. Today, I'm going to tell you about an Appalachian entity known as the Woman in Black. Go ahead and forewarn you, if you attempt to Google search the Woman in Black, you are going to get a bunch of listings about that old Daniel Radcliffe movie. And it isn't until you actually start searching with the word Appalachia that you find a little more whenever it comes to this kind of history. I started researching the Woman in Black about 2 years ago, trying to help a family member validate an experience that they had as a child. The first experience with the Woman in Black was actually around 1902, and it was in Roanoke, Virginia. And you can actually find this story within a book called Haunted Roanoke by the author L.B. Taylor. Now, those that experienced her said that she just kind of appeared out of nowhere, and they commented on the way that she was dressed and the way that she looked mostly, as it was very distinct and not like others or how other women dressed at that time. So they talk about how strikingly beautiful she was. She had dancing eyes, is actually the words that they used, and she stood about 5 feet 9 or 10 inches tall. And she was wearing black, all the way from her head with something almost like a hat down to her feet, completely solid, kind of in that mourning type attire that we would expect maybe for the time period. Now, it also mentions that she had lashes that were heavy and beautiful, and even that her forehead and eyes are proper index of that portion of her face concealed with a mask that was created out of like a black veil. But when the Woman in Black was seen, and this was not the first or last place that she was seen, it was like all of a sudden she would just kind of vanish, almost into thin air. They would experience her, and then she would be gone. But her appearance came around a very specific type of situation that makes her a very interesting entity, to me at least, for Appalachia. Now, it isn't the first or last time that we will ever talk about specific entities with specific agendas, and the Woman in Black is no exception of that. I really feel like this online article will probably even describe it better than me on what it was that she was trying to accomplish in her appearances, or at least what was experienced around those. Now, I will also note there are 2 locations mentioned here outside of Appalachia. Where she was also seen. So, according to legend, a woman in black typically appeared to men who had misbehaved, cheated on their wives, or committed some moral transgression. Folklore holds that towns such as Bristol, Tazewell, Lynchburg, and Richmond, Virginia, along with Jackson, Minnesota, were visited by a woman in black. According to one tale, she appeared suddenly and unexpectedly in Roanoke, Virginia, that we talked about in 1902. To men who had stayed too long at their club, insisting they go home as quickly as possible. Sometimes a woman in black was said to hit, pummel, or knock a man down to the ground or slap him to the earth with a swish of her phantom garments, as retribution for his sins. If continued, the men would be killed at the location where he committed his act. Now, I do want to make a note here to let you know that this goes a variation when it comes to the tales. So not all of the folklore is actually going into that kind of a violent act at the end, more so that she was guiding them to go home to their wives or their children. It was said that her alleged appearances at Roanoke had the effect of keeping married men home with their wives and families rather than going out each night. One account claims she appeared suddenly to 4 men of the Disciples of Christ Church in Tazewell, Virginia, and scared them so badly they all ran home. Prominent politicians and businessmen were sometimes rumored to have been visited by a woman in black. In March 1902, that same year, it was claimed that H.S. Wethereld, editor of the Alma Journal, Frank Grigsby, the area's leading carriage dealer, and Ashton C. Schallenberger, then the congressman of Nebraska's 5th District and later governor of Nebraska, had been scared by a woman in black in Alma, Nebraska. All of these accounts and descriptions come into play around the idea of a welling woman, or a spirit that is a woman who has experienced some kind of tragic event that has led them to appear after death, either seeking assistance, giving warning, or sometimes harm. We also hear about these types of entities when discussing the opposite of a woman in black, which is a woman in white. A woman in white is also known to have the same type of history, something tragic occurring, and appearing to mourn that loss in some way. Now, this could also go into a direction like we experienced with the Greenbrier ghost, where maybe something has happened or occurred, and they are trying to save other people from their fate. Now, I gotta say, with some of the lore of this story, it could also bear in mind and go with some of the history of Ya Llorona, another entity that is also known to kind of dress in this way and to have some of the same mannerisms. But in each story, it seems that the focus is either she has come into a situation or a establishment where there have been men in a club, bar, tavern, whatever you want to call it, and she is guiding them to go home and to do the right thing in certain circumstances, or she is sometimes following them home, where they would turn around and realize that she was there, and she would actually walk them to the front door. We can't 100% rule out that this was not an actual physical person, but for the time period, especially in those areas such as Virginia, we know that the main source of transportation is going to be horse and buggy. And with that being said, unless this woman can teleport, I'm not really sure how she would have physically got to so many locations in a short amount of time. So, was this a woman on a mission, or the spirit of a woman who experienced and carried her loss into the afterlife and tried to prevent others from experiencing it as well? That decision is up to you, my friends. And I guess it's one of those cases where if someone comes to Appalachia on a dark night with ill intent, we'll all find out. You never know what spirits still roam in these mountains. Stay curious, my souls.